Darkness, water, panic. A family lured by the cave's depths found themselves trapped in a watery prison for 55 hours. What had started as the three tourists' adventure into the cave soon turned into a nightmare. This is the story of Krizna Jama Cave, where water became a weapon, darkness a tomb, and seconds turned into hours. At the foothills of Krizna Mountain in Slovenia lies the mouth of Krizna Jama Cave, a massive underground labyrinth with over 22 lakes. The Novak family could barely contain their excitement as they geared up for a cave excursion. Since hearing about it last year, Matej and Martina had dreamed of exploring Krizna Jama's underground wonders. The family had planned to do the shortest route. After a few weeks of thinking, they finally decided to embark on this thrilling adventure with their 18-year-old daughter Anna and two experienced guides, Ivan and Boris. The total length of the cave is upwards of 7 miles. However, this was only reserved for the most experienced cave explorers. As the couple had a child, they would only be limited to the first 5 miles. After double-checking their helmets and headlamps, the group descended into the cave entrance. Anna skipped ahead, amazed at the geological formations. At the same time, Matej and Martina, Anna's parents, followed close behind, snapping photos of the underground lakes and glittering stalactites. Boris and Ivan brought up the rear, keeping a watchful eye. As the path twisted more, plunging into the earth, a hush fell over the cavern, broken only by dripping water echoes. Over 5 hours worth of passages awaited them. For now, the only danger was stubbing their toes on the uneven terrain. Little did they know, mere hours later, rising floodwaters would transform this subterranean paradise into a watery death trap. After about 2 hours of exploring, Boris guessed they had walked around 3 miles into the cave, but they couldn't tell for sure since it was so dark and the cave twisted and turned. However, they decided to stick to the guided path. Eventually, they came to an underground river and found a small boat tied up along the bank. The guides explained that it was also what the other tourists used. They decided to take the boat and explore the water more. Their passage narrowed. Stalactites reached down from the dark ceiling, some brushing gently on the top of their helmets to a point where they needed to bend down to get through. In the dark silence, the guide's voice was the only thing reassuring them that they were on the right path. After about an hour on the water, they decided they better turn around and head back if they would make it out by nightfall. After hiking and boating for hours, they were ready to follow their trail of glow sticks back to the cave entrance and daylight. But the cave and nature had other plans. Above ground, a massive thunderstorm had unexpectedly developed over the Slovenian countryside. Dark clouds rolled in, covering the once sunny blue sky. Soon the skies opened up and heavy sheets of rain began falling. Below the surface, all this rainfall seeped into the cracks, sinkholes, and fissures dotting the limestone landscape. These channels funneled the water deeper underground into the vast cave the group was exploring. The many branching passages and caverns filled rapidly with sudden floodwaters. A tremor ran through the rock, stirring the foundation of the cave. The unseen and unheard storm raged above, unleashing its fury on the land below. Headlamps darted skyward, searching for the source of the rising unease. A faint glimmer, a telltale sheen on the cavern walls confirmed their worst fear: water. The level started to creep up slowly, relentlessly, and on the once still mirror of water reflected impending danger. Panic soon replaced calm, whispers turning into urgent shouts. "The water's rising! Turn back!" Ivan shouted. Retreating from the vast chamber was suicide. The narrow passageway back to the cave entrance would become a death trap once the floodwaters unleashed their full fury. Deeper into the cave, a hidden chamber known only to the most experienced guides offered a chance of survival. They thought a labyrinthine network of tunnels, a maze they didn't know well, might provide temporary refuge until the storm's fury stopped. Determinedly, they turned the boat around in a furious rhythm against the growing roar of water. The entrance to the hidden maze was up ahead, a narrow crack barely visible in the rising water. With a final effort, they steered the boat into the mouth of the back cave entrance, leaving behind the echoing roar of the flood and plunging into the inky labyrinth. However, they didn't know at the time that they would be trapped without food or water for the next 55 grueling hours. The clock ticked past midnight, each chime a heavy counterpoint to the dripping silence within Krizna Jama. 12 hours had bled into the darkness since the last flicker of their headlamps disappeared into the hidden maze. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping, and the cave support team grew uneasy as they feared the worst, as their guides had yet to return. As the team had not returned from their cave exploring trip after 12 hours, their support team waiting outside grew worried. They had expected the trip to only last around 6 hours based on the mapped length of the cave system. With night falling and thunderstorms rolling in, they knew they needed to launch a search party soon. Meanwhile, deep in the cave, the group tried to find the highest ground they could. As water rose rapidly around them, they were already exhausted from their earlier hiking and boating. Now, they struggled to climb up slippery rock formations. At last, they found a ledge they could crouch on out of the churning floodwaters. Huddled together for warmth, they prayed the rain would stop and water levels would drop. Hunger and fatigue were taking hold, making it hard to think clearly. Above ground, the rescue team realized they needed to quickly gather their gear, flashlights, ropes, medical supplies, and extra food and water. 4 members cautiously headed into the cave entrance, unsure of what conditions they would find inside. At the cave entrance, the search team spotted the glow sticks the lost group had used to mark their inbound trail, but the flooded tunnels partially submerged them. Trudging slowly upstream in knee-deep water, they followed what signs they could, the powerful beams of their flashlights combing the turbulent darkness. After an hour of progressively deeper water, they reached an impassable underground waterfall and lake that blocked the main tunnel. Now, they had to find another route. 2 team members stayed behind in case the group had made it back to that point, while the others pressed on, hoping to find a high branch of the cave system the couple could have reached. This was now 7 hours after the first efforts to locate the family had started. Both rescue groups were losing hope, but knew they couldn't give up. The people's lives inside the flooded cave depended on them. With night falling outside, the team knew the odds were stacked against them, but the storm couldn't last forever. Once it clears, the water should recede in the cave. They just had to hold on and keep searching. The Novak family needed them more than ever. Across the abyss, trapped in the deep cave of the earth, the air hung heavy with fear. Hunger and fear twisted at the empty stomachs, fatigue weighed on weary limbs, and the darkness whispered of forgotten dangers. Their father built a flimsy fire to ward off hypothermia, but the small fire was not helping the 18-year-old Anna, who was showing signs of shock. They knew that things would take a turn for the worse if somebody did not do something immediately. Over 35 cave rescuers and 8 specialized divers across Slovenia joined the efforts to find and extract the missing group. However, rescuers faced significant difficulties due to the strong currents, low visibility, and complex layout of the submerged cave passages. On Monday, January 9th, as floodwaters gradually receded, a 6-member diving team would try to race against time and try and extract the family before the cave would fill up and the family would drown. The rescue divers entered the flooded cave, shining their headlamps into the dark waters. As soon as they went deeper, the water rose to their chests and necks. Soon they were completely underwater, swimming through the tunnels. Rocks scraped their skin as the current threw them around. Their lungs burned for air, but they kept going. Finally, they came up in an air pocket, gasping and shaking. They had reached a T-junction deep inside the cave. Somewhere down these flooded tunnels was the Novak team, waiting in the dark for rescue or death. They dove deeper into the cave, determined to find the family, as they knew if they delayed, it would mean all 5 of them would drown. Their lights illuminated an impossibly dark cave. The divers relied on lifelines to avoid becoming lost and disoriented in the labyrinthine cave system. They squeezed and contorted through narrow passages, scraping against rough rocks. At times, the roof dipped so low they had to take off their tanks to wriggle through, then put them back on in near total darkness. As the rescuers searched for the family at the cave, the cold black water had risen to their knees in the small chamber where the group was huddled. As hypothermia set in, they struggled to remain awake, locked in a life and death battle with the cave and their bodies, as they were tired and delirious from hunger and fear. Suddenly, something they least expected happened that instantly changed the course of events. A faint glow appeared in the tunnel below, the sweeping beam of a headlamp. Ivan fumbled for a flare and lit it, the sputtering red glow reflecting off the water. A lone diver emerged from the darkness, eyes lighting up when he saw the flare. The divers came forward. They saw a flicker of light, a Morse code SOS by light against the darkness. They were not alone. He turned and signaled to the backup team. Soon, multiple lights glowed as the other divers entered the chamber. After the team had found the family, the Dovers gave the Novak family inflatable suits to give them the best chance at finding a way back. Inch by inch, they ascended through the murky passages back towards daylight, supporting the weak and exhausted survivors. The return journey to the surface was grueling for the trapped cavers and rescue divers. Although floodwaters had receded slightly, passages were submerged, requiring diving equipment. The rescue divers guided the family through the dark, murky tunnels. With zero visibility, they relied solely on tactile navigation, feeling their way along the cave walls. Finally, reaching the surface, the weakened cavers were relieved, feeling sunshine and breathing fresh air. However, not all stories end well. For example, the tragic tale of the Sterkfontein Caves of Peter Verhusel, which unlike this brave rescue story, had a much more sinister ending.